Hello, everyone, and welcome to the next episode of Art Side of Life, where it's all about how you can turn your creative passion into a profession. My name is Eva, and my guest today is a skilled crafter, web and product designer from Waterloo, Ontario, Canada. For more than 6 years, she has been running a YouTube channel called Puddingfishcakes, which is all about DIY crafts and polymer clay. Ever since the beginning, she has been making video tutorials in an effort to bring the joy of polymer clay and crafts to other creators like herself. With over 250,000 subscribers, she has brought a community of DIY crafters together to learn from each other and celebrate the craft. So please welcome Helga, also known as Puddingfishcakes, and let's get to the interview. Hello everyone, and welcome to the next episode of Art Side of Life, and please welcome Helga.
Hi!
So maybe the first thing I would like to start with, you have quite a German name. Is that...
I do! So I was actually born in Germany. My parents, they did their grad school in Germany, and that's where I was born. But our family moved to Canada, which is where I'm at now, when I was around 2 years old. So I don't really remember anything from Germany, and I haven't been back there since. But
No.
Yeah, that's... I definitely want to visit sometime soon.
Then you will not have a problem with introductions, when you just say your name.
Mm-hmm.
So that's good. And so how was it to grow up in Canada with like artsy kind of background or the passion? How did you kind of first time maybe approach it when you realized you want to do it more?
Yeah, so I've always kind of grew up being very artsy and craftsy. I really enjoyed making things and painting and drawing and all that kind of stuff. And my parents were really supportive of that. Mm-hmm. They put me into, painting classes whenever they could. And I really appreciate that growing up. So yeah, it's always been a part of me as long as I can remember. Yeah.
And so which were like the biggest decisions you had to do?
Well, I would say one of the biggest things that kind of pushed me to being more creative was starting my YouTube channel. There was already kind of a community on YouTube that did very similar stuff that I was making, and I was watching their tutorials and I was posting some of the things I was making, and I thought, hey, I could totally make videos too. So I started doing that, and it's been so much fun. I started doing that almost 6 years ago.
Wow.
And that was back in high school, actually. So yeah, it's been a while and I've still kept doing it. So yeah.
Did you have to do some sacrifices, like maybe not going to some parties and these kind of things when you were still like studying and running the channel as well?
Yeah, for sure. And that's still something I kind of struggle with too, just because YouTube right now for me is more of a side project for me. I would either be in school or working during the week, and then on weekends I would be making videos. So it's more of a hobby, but it's kind of more than a hobby, if that makes sense. And yeah, I do take it quite seriously. And in terms of your question about sacrifices, I do think it's important to be very organized and time efficient with these kinds of things. I have a lot of things I want to do with my channel and a lot of things I want to do in my personal life as well. So making sure that you manage your time well and making sure that your time is being well spent is really important.
So how long do you usually spend maybe on one video, or do you do all the videos at once and then you release it one by one, or how do you plan?
Mm-hmm. So I usually, in terms of planning, during the beginning of the week, I think about what I'll be making for the weekend, because the weekend is when I usually film. So during the week, that's when I'm brainstorming, and whenever I have free time, I write down notes. And whenever something comes to me, I write it down somewhere. And then on the weekend, that's when I decide on what I'll be making and then film that. So that's kind of the process that I go through in terms of planning out my videos. It usually takes around 2 hours to film, just the filming part. And then I would say the editing takes a lot longer. I think people don't really realize this, but the editing portion takes maybe at least like double the time of how much you're filming. So yeah, it's good that I enjoy that kind of stuff, because otherwise I know a lot of people who they want to make videos, but it's the editing part that they really hate. But I enjoy it, so it's been good.
And when you started to do the videos and joined the channel, did you have like a best advice maybe you received from someone, and maybe also worst?
I kind of just went for it. In terms of advice, I did make a few really good YouTube friends, which is great with the community and everything. But good question. What advice? I would say try to post as regularly as you can, even if you don't feel like your content is the best or you're not totally happy with it. It's better to be more consistent with what you're posting. And that gives you more practice. It gives you more confidence in what you're doing. And yeah, I think it's just a good practice to post as often as you can, even if you don't feel like it's your best. And obviously do try to do your best with everything you do. But sometimes I've seen people where it's held them back of posting something. And I think it's important to let that go and make those mistakes so that next time you know what you can do better.
So the worst advice, was it from maybe community or from your surrounding? Can you kind of like take us maybe to the like bad moment or something you had to overcome?
Yeah, good question. So I guess more in my personal life, when I first started out, I didn't tell anyone about it. I think only my parents knew about it, and maybe one or two of my closest friends knew, but everyone else, they didn't know. And it was pretty interesting because I felt like I was living this kind of double life where I have like this internet self where I was like making videos, and then I have my personal life where they like, no one knew about it. And I think at one point I did tell a close friend about it, and she wasn't very supportive. And now we're not really close friends anymore. And I think that was like kind of a turning point for me in terms of, I feel like your people who you choose to be close with, they should be supportive of your decisions, and support what you want to do. And with this particular friend, I mean, she's great. I don't want to, say anything terrible about her, but she had her own opinions about it. And I felt kind of like I couldn't tell her about these things, that it was a very important part of my life at the time, and it still is. And I think having that kind of struggle with telling other people and what I wanted to do, and those things not really aligning, was a little bit difficult for me. So I think I didn't start telling people, other than, my close friends and my family, until maybe 1 year, like a whole year into doing it. Yeah. And I think it really has to do with my own confidence. I do feel like I grew a lot within these past 6 months, or not 6 months, 6 years. And I think YouTube, I used to be a really shy person, and I feel like I still kind of am, but I think with YouTube, you can be who you want to be, and you can kind of like define that for yourself. And going through that and doing that, I've definitely grew a lot as a person, and I'm definitely not as shy as I used to be, which is great. So yeah.
Yeah, so and what motivated you to go on, when you had like the bad experience, and was it the YouTube community, or was it like your self-driven, kind of mood that okay, I want to really do this? So
Mhm.
how did you, inspire
Yeah.
yourself?
Yeah, I would say it would be both. So definitely the community is super, super supportive. I know a lot of people say that like, internet people are really horrible, but in my experience, at least with the crafting community on YouTube, they're so supportive of each other. And I see people, posting photos on Instagram of things that they've made following my tutorials and stuff. And it's such a great community to be in. And I think that was the main motivator for me. Um, I think the other thing too is that I really enjoyed doing it. So I really enjoyed making things with polymer clay. I really enjoyed showing people how to make things with polymer clay, and also the video making part. So I think the community, so that's like kind of the outside inspiration, and then the motivation within of what I personally enjoy doing. So yeah, that's what kept me going.
Yeah, and if you look at your work and everything is like really cute and colorful, and do you have like a vision or kind of branding in mind when you're creating your stuff?
Hmm. So it's interesting because I feel like my brand has changed or evolved quite a bit
Mm-hmm.
since I've been doing this for so long. But I think in the end, my own personal style is kind of the brand. Of course, like with everything that an individual makes, they have like their own certain qualities that go into it. So I think in terms of my brand, I don't necessarily have anything totally defined in place. But it's mainly things that I personally enjoy, things that I like, and like I gravitate towards, cute, tiny things, and that's kind of what my channel is all about. So, yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I usually also ask about like where would you recommend people to start, if they want to do what you do. But obviously they should start with your product because you created this amazing book. So let's talk about your project.
Oh yeah, yeah. So I've been putting together this kit for people who don't necessarily have access to materials, or they want all of the materials for one specific project all in one go. They don't have to like go out and pick out all these different materials. I put them together into one box that I've been selling. So that was kind of the problem that I was trying to solve with that with my viewers. I think a lot of them, they ask me, where do I get my materials? What kind of brands are best to use for materials? And I think putting all of my favorite brands into a box and, you know, doing that for them is, it'll help them with getting started with what they want to make. So yeah, that's been the project.
So what is in the box? You have some pieces of the clay and some tools. If you can describe it a tiny bit more.
Yeah, yeah. So the one that is currently selling are these emoji magnets. There's all the clay that you need to create them. We also have the magnets that you can attach, the glue to attach them, the glaze, dotting tools, needle tools I think are in there too. So yeah, all like the tools you need, all of the materials that you need are in that box.
Hey, nice. Yeah. And so when you started to do all of these clay creations, did you watch like YouTube videos, as you mentioned? Do you also have some maybe go-to books or documentaries or something people can start with as well?
So I would say 99% of everything I've learned from clay is from YouTube videos. There's a great polymer clay community on YouTube, and some really, really talented people. There are people who make very realistic looking miniatures, which I find so fascinating to watch. But yeah, all of the techniques that I've learned, I would say, are mostly from watching other people and other people's tutorials and learning from other people. There are a few blogs online that I also read and get inspiration from, but mostly I would say it's from YouTube.
Okay, can you mention some channels you like, or we can put it in the description afterwards?
Yeah, for sure. So there's this one channel called Sugar Charm Shop, I believe that's the name, and she makes some really, really impressive stuff. Very realistic looking miniatures. It blows my mind every time she posts a video because it looks so, so real. What else? In terms of like video inspiration, not necessarily like crafts, but I watch a lot of people who I like the way they film their videos. So I learn like how they edit and things like that. So there's this blogger named Sarah Dici. I believe that's her name. So she's a blogger. She doesn't do like crafts or anything like that. But I really enjoy her filming style.
Okay.
And I like her, like how she edits her videos with the branding colors she uses and things like that. So yeah, I've been watching her a lot lately. So
Oh, cool.
yeah.
I mean, YouTube is really such a good platform for anything and everything you want.
Yeah.
And as you mentioned that you are not doing it full time, how do you design your day, or how do you split maybe your, activities, what you have during the week?
So most of the time I'm either in school during the week or I'm working. So right now I'm actually on an internship. So I've been working full time during the week, and then on weekends, that's when I work on videos. So in terms of my day to day, let me give you an example of school because I feel like that's the most, that's usually what I'm doing. So I currently attend the University of Waterloo in Waterloo, Ontario, Canada, and I'm actually studying fine arts. So during the day, I would be in lectures or in studio classes, and then when I come home, I'm doing homework or studying or hanging out with friends. So during the week, I try to focus mainly on either school or my own personal, socializing and things like that. And then I feel like in terms of the brainstorming process, whenever something comes to me or whenever I'm thinking about, what to make next, I write things down. So if, for example, I'm like going to a coffee shop or something and I see this pastry that I think really looks really cool, then I would, take a picture and think about how I could recreate it as a miniature or something like that. So I feel like I get a lot of inspiration from like everyday life. So I do feel like I'm constantly thinking about what I'll be making next. And it's mainly more like in the back of my head kind of thing where, I'm going with my day to day and then I see something, I'm like, oh, that would look so cool as like a miniature or something like that. Right. So yeah, that would be kind of like my day to day process in terms of YouTube. And then on the weekends, I usually try to film, on Saturdays, the actual tutorial portion. And then if you've seen my videos, I do kind of an intro and outro where I talk about, what we're going to be making today and things like that. So that's usually what I do on the Sunday. And then Sunday afternoon, that's when I'll be editing. And there's also, the voiceover portion and writing the script and all that stuff. And I usually try to do that after I've filmed the actual tutorial. So then I know like what to sync with. So yeah.
Ah, yeah, because that makes it a bit easier, so you don't have to do the script and like talking and voiceover before, because then you will have to match what you're doing. So
yeah, exactly. And also when I'm filming, I'm usually like improvising, if that makes sense. A lot of the times I don't actually make something first and then film it. I'm kind of making it as I film and figuring out how to make it as I film. So I never really know how it's going to go until I do it. So.
And you mentioned as well you are on internship where you work. What do you work as, if you can mention?
Yeah, for sure. So right now I'm a product design intern. I do web design, user experience, user interface design. And I'm interning at MailChimp. I don't know if you've heard of it. Yeah. So I'm actually in Atlanta, Georgia right now, doing that internship for the summer. And then I'll be going back to school in the fall.
And when do you finish the school?
So I still have 2 more years left for my bachelor's degree. Yeah.
Oh, cool. I mean, but then you can still decide what you will do. Is it the fine art, or is it the design, or, like continue with the DIY and craft? Do you already have an idea what you would like to do?
Yeah, so definitely right now I'm looking at YouTube as like a side project. My main career goals are more towards product design and user interface design. And that's something that, I really enjoy, and I like working within a company and working towards a product. But with YouTube, I feel like it's a lot of, I would call it freelancing work, if that makes sense. I feel like if I were to go full-time with YouTube, I'd be taking a lot more sponsorships. I'd be working with a lot of other YouTube partners and things like that. And I feel like that process is very similar to what it's like to be freelancing with a creative career. So that's kind of how I'm looking at it right now. Obviously, I still have, quite a bit of time before I graduate and have to actually figure out what I want to do. So that might change. But for now, I really enjoy working within a company and working within a team too, with other people and interacting with other people. And I feel like with YouTube, it can sometimes be a little bit isolating. You do have your community online, and that's amazing. But at the same time, you don't have that, face-to-face interaction with people. And that's something that, I've been trying to figure out how I could get with the whole YouTube thing. I live in a place where there aren't many YouTubers around. And I do want to attend more conferences and things like that to actually meet other YouTubers face-to-face. Yeah.
And do you already have some YouTube conferences in mind which you would go to?
Yeah, so I really want to attend VidCon someday. So that's a conference for online video that happens annually. But yeah, in past years, it's always been, I'm either in school or I'm working, so I don't really have that time to go. But I'm really hoping that next year maybe I could go. But yeah.
VidCon is in LA, if I'm not mistaken, right? Or?
I believe so. I think last year it was in Anaheim, California.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so it's in that area.
It's over there. And so when you mentioned some of the projects you're working on, are there any new projects you're excited about now which you want to talk about for the future?
Good question. I actually don't really have anything lined up at the moment. I have been working with a channel called DreamWorks TV, and I've been working with them for a few years now, actually. I make videos for their channel, and I'm hoping to continue that once I get back to school in the groove of things. So yeah, that's something that I've been working on. I think another thing is possibly expanding the box project, maybe creating another kit. Just, making more videos and seeing how things go.
And so how do you make living right now? Like, is it mainly from YouTube or sponsorship, or it's from work, or how do you basically combine it?
Yeah, so right now it's mainly from working on my internships. I think with YouTube, I do get a good amount of pocket money every month, which is really nice. I also work with sponsorships every once in a while. So that's where a lot of my income comes from. But yeah, I'm still in school, so don't know how it's going to be, once I graduate.
It's more for people to imagine, like how can you, make yourself to live from your passion, like maybe how many followers you have to have on YouTube or how many sponsorships you have to do, kind of where or when would you get to that level that you can actually live from your art?
Right. Yeah, that's definitely a good question. I feel like in terms of YouTube content creators, they get a lot of their income from sponsorships. YouTube does give out ad revenue, so you get a percentage of, those ads that play before your videos or the ads that you see on the side of YouTube on your videos. If a viewer clicks on an ad or if they watch like a pre-roll of an ad, then you get some commission from that. But I do believe most people who do make a living off of YouTube, they get a lot of their money from sponsorships and brand collaborations, brand partnerships, things like that.
Yeah. It's really interesting point because it's still kind of new world for young people.
Yeah.
And it's so different from, if you look at someone who is in a business for like 20, 30 years, so they started completely in a different way. So
Right.
This is really cool to know for young people. They have so many options.
Yeah, exactly. And I think what's special about YouTube is that literally anyone can do it and anyone can, share their craft or share what they want to, share with the world. And I think it's super cool that way that it's so accessible.
And is there something you wish you knew before you started?
Something I wish I knew. Good question. Something I wish I knew. I think, I don't know if there is something. I mean, I'm super grateful for being able to learn as I go and being able to kind of make mistakes, but being able to like bounce back on those. And I think it's been a super valuable experience, and I don't think I would change any of that. I think one piece of advice that I would tell people is don't put too much pressure on yourself. I think for a long time with YouTube, I was putting a lot of pressure on myself because I would call myself a perfectionist. So as I was saying before with making something and not being super, completely happy with it, it's still okay to, post it and send it to the world because you're kind of your own worst critic. And you're going to be the person who will be criticizing your work as much, the most criticized than, someone who is just watching because they want to watch it. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Yeah.
I do the same. I'm like, this looks horrible. And when you mentioned as well, like some of the books or videos you watch, is there like a maybe book or other movie you would recommend to people? Maybe something you give as a gift. Doesn't have to be art related.
Yeah, for sure. So there's this book called Steal Like an Artist by Austin Kleon. And I think it's a super, super quick read. But it gives you a lot of advice on how to pursue a creative career. And I think it also applies a lot to life in general, like how to approach life and how to find meaning in your work and how to find meaning in, what you're doing. So, yeah, I think if I would gift that to anyone who wants to pursue something creative, or maybe even just someone who is open to, living a full life and living a meaningful life, I think that it's a great book to read. Yeah.
Yeah, I haven't read it yet, so actually that's really good suggestion.
Yeah.
And I was just thinking now, maybe we can go back as well to the sponsorships, because maybe some people already have YouTube channels and they are just wondering now how can they find sponsors, or how would you decide maybe what to say yes to and no to, and how, do you contact sponsors directly or they contact you, or how that works?
Yeah. So for me, mainly it's been sponsors email me through my business email. And a lot of them, I try to pick sponsors or brands that I feel my users would actually get value from. Um, so I think that's, for me, I've had the privilege to be able to say no to some sponsors. But I know a lot of people who are trying to pursue this full time, it would make more sense to, take as much as you can. But for me, I think it's also important to be able to align your audience with what you're promoting, right? Because then you become kind of this spokesperson for that brand. So yeah, most of my sponsorships I've done, they've contacted me. But there are sites online now where YouTubers can go on and they can actually scroll through a bunch of different campaigns or advertising campaigns that are going on, and they can participate in those. So for example, one of them is called FameBit. I don't know if you've heard of it, but it's basically a platform where a bunch of brands who are looking for people to sponsor, they put on their campaign, and then YouTubers or content creators that can go on, scroll through and kind of see and pick and choose what they want to do a partnership with. And how that process works is they can contact them directly, give them a message and say, hey, this is my proposal of, for example, a video that I want to do with your product in it. So I think with tools like these, there are, I think, a few other websites that do these. But I think it's a really great tool to find sponsorships if you're looking for them.
Yeah, for sure. Because I mean, if you are like, no one is contacting you yet, and then you are all upset, like, oh, but I would like to do something, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
And when was the first time maybe someone contacted you? How many followers did you have?
Um, I think, I would say when I hit the 1,000 subscriber mark, that's kind of when I started getting more sponsored emails. A lot of them too are sometimes like a brand gifts you something that, like a product, and then you post it on your Instagram or something like that. So there necessarily doesn't have to be like a paid portion of it. It's more of, here's a free product. We would love for you to, share this with your followers. So that's more of kind of what I was doing at the beginning. And then later on, I would say maybe it's really hard to kind of give a number with these kind of things because the YouTube platform is always changing and numbers are growing so quickly. So, like 1,000 subscribers that I had, 5-6 years ago may not apply now. But it is hard to say how many, followers or subscribers you need to have. And I do think your video view count is also super important because, someone who has, say, 100,000 subscribers, but they only get maybe 1,000 views per video kind of thing. So that's another metric to keep in mind. But yeah, does that answer your question?
Yeah, definitely. Because, like if you think about, you have the channel and then you have, I don't know, 50 followers, then probably you shouldn't be worried yet. But maybe if you are like, I don't know, 100,000 followers and you are about to get the plaquette, or how do you call the thing, right? And then no one is contacting you, then it's like, maybe I should do something.
Yeah. And those websites that I mentioned that kind of hosts a list of sponsors is definitely a really great place to start if you're looking for something like that.
How do you call the YouTube thingy?
Oh, the silver button?
Yes.
Yeah.
Was that a special experience for you?
It was, yeah. Like it was mailed to me, and I was actually in school, and I go to school in a different city than my where I grew up and where my parents are. So that was sent to my parents' house. So I was actually in school when that was sent over. So they sent me photos and everything, and it was very exciting.
Oh, that's so cool. So it's 100,000 mark, right?
Yeah, so you get the silver play button, which is like about this big, and you get that at 100,000, and then I think the gold play button, which is much larger, that's
So
at
you will feel.
that's at the 1 million mark, I believe, and then
Okay.
I think there's another one at like 10 million. Yeah,
Okay, the goal is set.
yeah.
But so, and when you think about your goals for the future, you mentioned like product design and like designing all of these, yeah, artsy things, right? And how would you imagine yourself in 5 to 10 years if you have like all your dreams come true and everything how you want?
Wow. That's a big question. I feel like my dreams are always changing. Like the more I experience different things and the more I learn about the world, my perception of the world is always changing, and what I want from my life is always changing too. And I think I don't necessarily have like a set goal that I want to achieve. Um, I do really love doing web design and product design. So definitely having, a strong career in that in the future. But also continuing with what I've been doing with YouTube, because I find it's so much fun for me. And I love the community, and, so yeah, doing that and living in a city that, I'm very happy in, and being around, people that I love. So
Yeah.
yeah.
And do you have a favorite quote which kind of you follow?
um, yeah, I don't actually have like a favorite quote. What I have is I keep this Evernote document, and whenever I pass by a quote that I really like, or I read a sentence that really resonates with me, I copy that over onto this document. So I have this document that's just like filled with quotes that I love. But one thing that I have been thinking a lot about is um, I'm not exactly sure who said this, but trade your expectations for appreciation. And that's something that I really try to live by and try to remind myself of like being grateful for the opportunities that I've been given. And I do realize that I've been very privileged growing up, having like a supportive family who supports my, creative endeavors. And, realizing that that's something that not everyone has, and constantly being grateful for that, and grateful for, the people who I've chosen to share my life with and things like that. So, yeah, I think not having expectations for situations, and instead appreciating what you have, and what you've been given, and taking those opportunities and seeing where they can lead you.
Yeah, yeah, I totally agree. And just being grateful for basically whatever you have because it can always be worse. So, and
Hmm.
just like even small things, like there was not warm water, like because of some construction. And then when it comes back, you're like, oh my God, I have like running water and
Yeah,
it's just
exactly.
great.
Yeah.
And then it just brings the happiness. And
Hmm.
so that's, yeah, that helps. At least me. And do you have something which simplifies your life? Some product maybe you bought?
Yeah, good question. I think not necessarily a product, but definitely things that have helped me in terms of organizing my time and organizing, uh, my day to day. I always keep a notebook with me at all times. I'm always writing things down, even at work when, I'm given, some feedback on something that I'm working on. I always write it down afterwards. And I think it's a good way to reflect on what you're thinking and your thoughts, and also reflecting on what other people have talked to you about. I also keep a diary, like a journal that I write. I try to write in every week, every 2 weeks. Even if nothing really is going on in my life, I think writing it down and kind of documenting what I've been feeling has been super helpful with my mental health. And it's also interesting to kind of look back on, say, for example, on this day exactly a year ago, this is what I was thinking and this is what I was doing at that time, which I think is a really interesting thing to look at. So I definitely recommend for people to do that. I think it kind of gives you a different perspective on your past and your present, and even looking at the future too.
Yeah. Do you have a favorite one you can recommend people to get?
A favorite notebook?
Yeah.
Yeah. I love moleskins. I know it's what everyone likes, but yeah, I don't know. It's really great quality. I love how the pages feel. So, yeah.
Yeah, I get it. I have all the moleskins as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's definitely good. And so maybe the last question I want to ask you is about the future, and how would you like to be remembered for maybe in 100 years?
Yeah, that's a good question. I feel like I don't necessarily, it's not really a goal for me to be remembered in 100 years. I feel like, our lives are so short, but also so long. And regardless of your religious beliefs, what we do know is that we are here for this amount of time in this, sliver of the history of time and the universe. And I feel like for me, as kind of a life goal, is to have a meaningful life and be able to find meaning in my everyday life and being happy. I know it's super cliche, but finding something that I like to do that, brings me happiness and joy, and also having some sort of impact with not necessarily a large group of people, but at least the people who are close to me, and impacting people's lives in a positive way. Yeah, I think I know that's super vague, but yeah, that's kind of where my head's at right now.
Yeah, but I think it's really nice and really well said, because we just should try to be happy and help others. So yeah. So, and if you have a last piece of advice for people before we say goodbye.
Yeah, I think for anyone who's listening who doesn't know if they should do what their heart is telling you to do, just go for it, and don't let fear, hold you back in what you want to do. Just go for it, try it out, and it won't be as terrible as you think it is. Yeah.
Yeah, so thank you very much for being here and for everyone joining today.
Thank you so much for having me.
So thank you so much, and see you in the next episode. Hey guys, if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and let me know in comments. Also, please subscribe to my channel for more videos, because I post new interview every single workday. You can also find the resources mentioned in this episode at artsideoflife.com. Just type a guest name in the search bar. There is also a little freebie waiting for you, so go check it out. If you want to listen to the interviews on the go, make sure to check out the podcast episodes at artsideoflife.com/podcast. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate you, and don't forget to inspire each other. I will see you guys in the next episode.